together and pay breakfast due to the pandemic and to COVID. Thank you so much for being here. We're so happy to have you here. We'd like to acknowledge our sponsors. Will Victoria's Secret please stand? Thank you for your generous donation of $5,000. We really appreciate your support. And will Premier Health please stand? Thank you for your generous donation of $2,500. And to our gold, silver, and bronze sponsors, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good morning and welcome. A great welcome. What an awesome crowd we have, and all happy faces. I see all kinds of colors. That tells me that it is a diverse group, inclusive group, and you're all looking great and beautiful this morning on a cold day. Thank you for coming. Appreciate that very much. I think let's give a big clap to all of us. On behalf of the Centerville-Washington Diversity Council, I cordially and bottom of my heart welcome each and every one participating. And as Linda mentioned earlier on, we took a break of a year because of the COVID situation, but we are back. So this is our 21st annual breakfast, and it is a sellout again. And some are probably slowly coming in, but it's a sellout. We're indeed very thankful to honor this special day, the day of late Dr. Martin Luther King, and continue to promote and have in our hearts and do one of the greatest of things of American, keeping up with his legacy that he has given to us to follow. Certainly, Dr. King has fought for so much for us for freedom and equality of all people, and justice and nonviolence. And it's a great thing for us as Americans, and proud of the fact that we could do and continue to do and see as best as we can for the people of America and for the people of the world, where we stand tall and we stand high. My friend, this is especially on this day is a special day. The Centerville-Washington Diversity Council always looks forward to bringing in new membership, welcoming everyone. There's no fee for us to join, and there are always great opportunities. And we are on the Facebook and we are on the website, so you can always go and check it out and check us out. And any one of us is available to be contacted for further information. This morning, I want to take the privilege of welcoming some special folks who are here who have been very instrumental in working with the Diversity Council and at the same time giving all their support. I will at this time want to give the opportunity to welcome all of our Centerville City and all of our township officials who are present with us, and they have been great folks, and I think I'd like to have them stand. All the township and all the city council members, please stand wherever you are. I'd appreciate that, please. Thank you one and all, thank you. It's my privilege to welcome Dr. Sabir Dashan Singh, MD. He represents the Sikh Society of Dayton, Greater Dayton, very much involved in some of the works and community programs and projects in the Dayton area as well as across the world. Dr. Singh has been a resident with his wife. We also welcome his wife with us. He has very kindly consented to give his time for us this morning to give us an invocation. Dr. Singh, can you please come forward?
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ This is a Sikh greeting. It's my pleasure to be able to join you this morning. I want to thank Diversity Council to invite me today. Special thanks to Shivaji Subramaniam, Chair of Diversity Council. We have been in touch for some time on different occasions. God has many names. Vaheguru is one name for the Lord, the Creator, that I'm going to address today. Vaheguru, with your grace and your permission, we are gathered here today to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. Vaheguru, we seek your divine presence and blessings throughout today's event. Vaheguru, make yourself at home in our hearts. You alone can guide us and teach us the way we must go and how we are to pursue it. Vaheguru, guide us to follow Dr. King's belief in the power of service as expressed in his legendary quote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." In keeping with Dr. King's example, help us to embrace the belief that our destiny is shared and accept our obligations to each other, future generations, and people by strengthening the bonds that hold together the most diverse nation on earth. We come from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, and together we seek your blessings to inspire us to perform acts of kindness through service to others every day. Lord, bless us all, the organizers, speakers, and participants of today's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday celebration, and bless the fellowship and the food we are just having. Please help us to serve you in all we do. Help us to honor you both today and every day. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Marcia, and I'm going to introduce our speaker this morning. It is a true pleasure, that's for sure. And I will tell you, his name is Peter Edward Matthews. But I'm wondering sometimes, when his mom decided to name him Peter, if she was reading Matthew, because that was the apostle that to whom Jesus gave the keys to the kingdom of heaven. So I don't know if when I look at his resume, look at his bio, I'm thinking she made a good choice naming him Peter, that's for sure. Also, he and I have something in common a little bit. His family, his mom and dad, were writing checks to Denison University just like I was. He turned out just great as a graduate of Denison, undergrad, as did my son, who came along a few years later. But just to tell you a little bit about our speaker this morning, Peter Matthews is a much sought-after author and speaker who has preached, lectured, or keynoted extensively, not only throughout this country, but India, Jamaica, England, Switzerland, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Africa. This is over the past 2 decades. This gentleman has been very, very busy. He's a guest contributor to Huffington Post. He is also the co-founder of the Global Village. This is a Methodist church collective. There are 7 churches in this collective from which he secured more than $500,000. And he did this to initiate creative solutions to persistent problems in critical care for urban areas. Right now, he's the lead pastor for McKinley United Methodist Church in Dayton. He is the youngest lead pastor in that church's 130-year history, which makes it the oldest black church in this area. I'm not going to tell you much more about him. I'm not going to stand here because once he gives his keynote, you're going to understand why he was asked to be the guest speaker this morning. Reverend Peter Matthews.
Good morning. I am aware of my assignment, and yet I'm mindful that I was telling the team that was so gracious and took us to dinner yesterday. They said, I know these are serious times, but do you have any jokes? I'm not sure when you ask a preacher to come, do you have any jokes? But I do know this to be sure, Harvey Smith, that I think my father, God rest his soul, who's in heaven, who was the lead janitor at Children's Hospital for 38 years and worked for sun up to sundown and raised a young man whose name wasn't his, would be awfully excited. Not that I have toured in India or actually lectured in Luxembourg. My daddy would be so proud of me that I lived long enough to lecture at an event sponsored by Victoria's Secret. Somebody say amen. This is fantastic. Lord have mercy. I have arrived. This is beautiful. I don't have any jokes, but my daddy, we made it. We made it. Lord have mercy. The church people are looking at me like, there he goes. To the Diversity Council who has taken the time over these last couple years to work with us to get us to this point, Linda White has left no stone unturned. Let's give her a round of applause. And Philip Raines, who was in my class at the OSHA Learning Center, we'd love to host any of you who are open to a tour to come by and see how we have transformed the west side of Dayton into a more equitable space where opportunities are for all. During Philip's tour, he gained a new nickname. Now, you know Philip is the treasurer, and his new nickname is Bishop Phil. Because long before he got out the building, he made sure he got the check from McKinley's table. So we want to thank Bishop Phil for being here. Again, when you look at this august assembly, it is mindful of the times that we are living in. It's again an honor and a deep privilege for someone who had severe motor problems his entire life through graduate school and high school and even elementary school to think about the opportunity to stand before you. Indeed, there's an old story about a man who loved the dog track. He loved to go by to see the dogs racing. I know that's far beyond any of you to ever go to a horse track or place any bets at all, particularly with our finest right here beside me. But this young man was so moved to go to the dog track once, he got the inclination that he decided that he wanted to enter his dog into the dog track. And he got there, and moved up, and the man that was managing the track, he looked at him, and all he saw from this man was a mutt. He didn't understand how this man was going to bring a mutt to a place where these fine breeds and specimens were racing for great sums of money. And the man looked at the old man and said, "Where are his papers?" And the man said, "I'm sorry, I don't have any papers." He said, "Well, what's his pedigree?" And the man, Darren, said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a pedigree." And so he said, "How do you expect this man to speak in front of all these thoroughbred racetrack dogs?" And the old man took off his glasses and looked the man in the eyes and said, I thought the exposure would do him good. So I'm so glad to be exposed this morning here on the 21st annual event of this occasion. But these are serious times, and I want to take a minute to be serious. We're dreaming with audacity. It's the lecture that I want to kind of offer up to you today. Dreaming with Audacity, a global call to greatness. Dreaming with audacity, a global call to greatness. Listen to Dr. King in 1964. This is him at the Nobel Peace Prize. He says, I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity and equality and freedom for their spirit. I believe that self-centered men have torn down what other-centered man can build up. I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed, and nonviolent redemptive goodwill will proclaim the rule of the land. And the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and every man shall sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none will be afraid, because we shall overcome. End quote. Martin Luther King, human, spouse, third generation preacher and pastor, doctorally trained theologian, civil rights icon, Nobel Peace Prize recipient, global advocate of peace, slain martyr for the dignity of all people, Martin Luther King Jr. Today, we gather in this august assembly, now in the 55th year of his tragic demise, which in hindsight is now 16 more years than he was able to live in his 39 years of life. And so today, on the 93rd celebration of his birth, we gather here today in appreciation of his memory to applaud his tireless sacrifice. Yet, what does history still have to say that has not been said already? How can we speak into the annals of contributions to individuals short of Jesus and Buddha and Moses and Abraham Lincoln that also share this distinction and this distribution of knowledge and wealth? What does relentless ambition encourage and have the audacity to offer humanity in general? And so here today, in a particular time in which every solution has to be privatized and our dreams are seemingly suffocated by whether or not they gain viral momentum on social media, I offer up today MLK's audacity as a starting point, not only to make our lives better, but most importantly, to make the world we live in more human. Listen again to the words that I began our time with here, Dr. King in 1964. I had the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals for their bodies, education and culture for their souls, and dignity and equality for and freedom for their spirits. I believe that what self-centered man have torn down, other-centered people can build up. I still believe that mankind, now humankind, have before the altars of God be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed, and the power of non-redemptive goodwill will become the rule of the land. And the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and we shall sit comfortably under our own vine and fig tree and not be afraid, and we shall overcome. Where do we find this audacity? Where can we summon up our lives, our families, our communities, our cities, our nations in this world? We need audacity. We must build upon King's dream for a better world with audacity and believe that we found it. That greatness in this parallel times is a call on behalf of each of us, and it's lurking at our doorsteps. The question is, will we answer it? My call to greatness? Me? I've been divorced. Me? I feel so unsure of myself. Greatness is a call upon each of our lives that must be wrestled with, free from external validation and family expectations. For more than any time in the period of humanity, we must each unshackle the locks of mediocrity that have gripped us for so long and walk in our appointed greatness for such a time as this. For greatness is knocking at our doorstep. Will we answer it? Why do you call for greatness, Peter? Because right now in Ukraine and Central Africa are doing mass genocides constantly under Russian aggression. We need greatness. Why? Because 49% of the children today that live in the city of Dayton are undergoing and living in extreme poverty. We need greatness. Why? Because even the best of us from time to time should sit still long enough to raise real questions and to work through our integrity and stand on the other side of history, fixated with what's before us, and dream out loud in real time. Yet the determining factor of greatness is not solely dependent upon whether or not one has a YouTube station, a Wikipedia page dedicated to their greatness and their accomplishments. Instead, greatness is not found by your stock portfolio or how many stamps you have in your passport. Indeed, greatness is found when you have the inner courage to live your life in stereo, as if today is your last, and without a shadow of a doubt, you live with the knowing realization that no one in the world is you. And today, King asks us to think about that because he asks real questions. He lives his life with the radical integrity, and he dreams with the revolutionary imagination, all the while knowing that despite the obstacles that we shall overcome. For greatness is knocking at your door. Will we answer it? Listen closely now to the words of a 38-year-old king, now 4 months removed from his violent death. Here in his final book, Where Do We Go From Here? Community or Chaos? His last original manuscript, but he put in it a description and a prescription to deal with the evils of race, class, militarism, on display for the entire world to see. Hear King closely. Why does America delude itself, and how does it rationalize sometimes the evil it exports? The majority of Americans believe that they are in concert with successful persons of color and consider themselves sincerely committed to justice. They believe that America is essentially a society hospitable to fair play and steady growth towards a middle-class utopia embodying a racial harmony. But unfortunately, it is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity, end quote. Here we feel kings exhausted and weary from his powers of moral persuasion, leaning into a new sense of who he really is in real time. That this might cost him his pristine reputation and lose some money on the lecture circuit. He might not be able to garner and forfeit the organizational grants and contributions that he's come accustomed to. And yet King loved his country enough to pose real questions to real people in real time. And so, all of us here should think about those same things in 2023. Voicing reasonable and rational and respectable questions give us an opportunity to live at the table of brotherhood and sisterhood and hang on to this beautiful tapestry of a quilt called the American ideal. Moreover, real questions fortify the consciousness of those seeking greatness and avail us not to be searchers of a conscience, but to be a molder of a conscience. For King says in his last sermon, conscience says, is it expedient? And then the expedience asks us to ask these questions. Is it political? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? Because there comes a time when we must take a position that's not political nor popular, but we must ask the question that moves us towards asking ourselves, is it right? And in lieu of the unending barrage of global devastations that lie in our wake, I wonder what questions that are sitting underneath your soul today. Ask the question, how is it that the Dayton public school system, Renita, has gone from 30,000 children to 12,000 children in just one generation. I asked the question, why is it becoming increasingly harder to register to vote in the state of Ohio than it is to buy a gun or place a bet on an Ohio State football game? I asked the question, what if malaria killed 3,000 children daily in the south of France or in Connecticut like it does in sub-Saharan Africa every day? What would our response be? Voicing these questions kick off conversations that generate systemic outcomes that have nothing to do with whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat. Quite the opposite. Real questions search our minds across a tapestry called commitment, where individuals are ushered to use both their conservative and progressive paintbrushes because partisanship must take a backseat to a solution. That's a hell of a sentence right there. Y'all need to think about that. Conscious asks the question to move away from equal lines of communication and shared responsibility because it makes us greater people. For greatness is knocking at our doors. Will we answer the call? For King, never intimidated nor dismayed by real questions, posed himself to him and constituencies on a regular basis. This exacted from him not just the power to ask, but put him on the table of real and radical integrity. That is correct. Authentic leadership is never put off by the genuine conversation or the opportunity for transformative discussion. Real conversations allow authentic persons to measure the depth of their heart by living into a radical integrity. Yet today, we must not only simply celebrate King's rhetorical genius, but we must also laud his radical integrity. Integrity not simply linked to personal piety, rather integrity demonstrated by his willingness to struggle with himself, to struggle with his ideals until they reach greatness, and yes, even in struggle with his creator. A greatness that would not only thrust him upon our purview by speech making, but rather one that made him have a seat at the pantheon of American greatness. A radical integrity that each of us can live into right now. Listen once more to King's words in 1967 as he was talking about the thoughts of American militarism in the speech to study war no more at the Riverside Church in New York. Here, King is bemoaning our nation's misguided adventures because he thought that they would strip us away from the opportunities to help people right here at home. Do me a favor, and I'm going to whisper this quote to you, and just close your eyes. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted right now by the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is no such thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time, and life often leaves us standing bare and dejected with a lost opportunity. But we still have a chance today. We still have a chance right now. Open your eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, we still have a chance in 2023 to make the world more humane. A choice that extends itself to each of us individually and moves throughout a conscious behavior in our families and our churches, our mosques, our synagogues, our schools, and our workplaces, to no longer perpetuate the self-inflicted violence upon ourselves and make real a concerted effort to live out a radical integrity so we can live into the American ideal, with uplifted voices have this beautiful collective quilt. To make not an idol of certainty, but rather it permits us to be open to new ideas and discoveries and opinions, and to choose the long and bitter struggle towards a new world. A world where we value our differences and our strengths. A world where selflessness and courage have just as much currency as stocks and cash. A radical integrity to not lose any opportunities, but more importantly, not just to do better, but to be better. A radical integrity that asks these questions. What are you like behind closed doors? What is the true intent of our heart without charitable contributions? Radical integrity always seeks to ask questions and more. It challenges us to move outside our comfort zone and constantly survey our life with just as much patience as it does passion. Yet why have I denoted radical integrity in talking about King? Because King was far from a perfect man. Yet what he understood about the American experiment is that a radical integrity will allow us to muster and live into our attention and to live our creative ways to provide everyone in our national quilt fair and equitable resources to share in this nation's unparalleled success. This is radical integrity. Fast forward 55 years later, and our nation now more diverse than it's ever been along the lines of race and color and nationality and gender and sexual orientation and physical disability. We not only have the courage to ask real questions, but we're moving towards a radical integrity where the first is last and the last is first. A radical integrity whose heart pumps real love for children, whether they come from America or Africa or Australia or Uganda or Europe or Asia or Australia. A radical integrity that moves us at the center of our divisions and lets us sit at the table, as my friend Eric Spina says, until we reconciled our differences, because too much is at stake. And as we sit at those tables, we recognize that we live in a world where there's no big I's and no little U's. A radical integrity where we stop treating God like a partisan deity, and we hear the echoes of Abraham Lincoln in our ears, where he says, "Sir, my concern whether or not God is on our side, my greatest concern is that we are on God's side. For greatness is knocking at your door. Will we answer it?" We got to ask some real questions. Yeah, we've got to wrestle with some radical integrity, but we've also got not to be afraid of revolutionary imaginations. A revolutionary imagination is simply the willingness to place your life in plain view before the world and your world to see. How does one produce such an imagination? Summoning the courage of your collective ancestors is one way to do it. Securing a dogged determination to walk and to work and to witness until you're able to live your ideals, not just on paper, but you find the courage to live them out in your life. How do we do it? Listen to Dr. King, and I'll be ready to close. This Dr. King that I'm quoting is him and his realized self. You ever get old enough to finally see yourself outside of your mom and dad's expectations? his real self, not the one that graduated from high school at 15, not the one that graduated from college at 19, not the one who at 26 got a PhD and led Montgomery along a boycott and gained international recognition, not the one that sat outside of the Lincoln Monument and offered a dream to the world, or the one who was seen by Lyndon Johnson as having the centerpiece for civil rights legislation in 1964. This is another king, a king in who 1968's Gallup poll was at an all-time low, a king in no small part to his own personal life and J. Edgar Hoover's wiretappings, had a marriage that was in trouble. A king that in the last 4 years of his life averaged more than 300,000 miles in the air each year and gave more than 300 speeches a year, not including the 4 books that he wrote. This is the same king who, amidst all of his activities, decided to go back to Memphis and march with garbage collectors because he was holding the American ideal. And on the night before he was assassinated, this king, on behalf of garbage workers, exhausted, said this. But let me tell you what my imagination tells me. It says that we must rise up tonight with the greater readiness, that we must stand with the greater determination and move in these powerful days, these days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make a better nation. And I want to thank God for you and allowing me to be here with you tonight. End quote. This is the segue for the close of his speech when he talked about his mortality. You've heard it before. He said, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go to the mountaintop, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. A revolutionary imagination, audaciously dreaming of a world while boldly trying to change the world that you're in. Philip, Linda, I want to thank you for allowing me to dream out loud. Centerville-Washington Diversity Council, thank you for allowing this young man that had trouble getting through grade school have a conversation about the world and how Dayton wrestles with its ideals. Yet, what about you? Will you dream out loud tomorrow? What about you? Will you ask yourself those real questions? For you see, in the black church, we got something called testimonies. I hate to sound like an old black preacher, but that's what I am. And in those testimonies, it behooves us to move into a sense of dramatic closure where we become ever mindful of the goodness that's bestowed upon us and how we share that in goodness at the same time. We receive goodness and then we want to share it same time. And so I'm thankful to the Centerville-Washington Diversity Council for allowing me to dream out loud and to make you think about real questions and radical integrity. But my testimony is a reminder that I still have a dream. I must continue to dream with audacity. For every little boy who was raised by a man who did not share his last name, but raised by a man who worked from sunup to sundown to provide me the type of education and exposure that could only be matched by children whose last names were Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Kennedy. Herbert Anthony Johnson, in heaven, I dream for you. I dream for kids who grew up with learning disabilities, or those C-plus students who pushed their way through college, that you too one day will be awarded with alumni citations from your high school and your college while receiving a master's degree from Princeton and the University of Geneva in Switzerland. Children of Roosevelt Elementary School in the hood of West Dayton, I dream for you. And I dream of audacity for every church sprawled amidst generational urban despair, on the brink of closing and finding its will to franchise hope, where you move in 6 years from $12,000 and 30 members to 6 years later, almost bringing in upwards of $1 million while serving 3,000 people and employing more than 30 people in 3 separate corporations. McKinley United Methodist Church, I dream for you. But I dream with my eyes open and my feet moving. I dream like I've got difficult questions that I'm no longer scared to ask in public. I dream like I'm growing into my integrity while finding those around me to ask them difficult questions that we might grow together. Will you join me, Centerville-Washington Diversity Council? Will you begin right now to dream with audacity with me? Can we dream and love like we've never been hurt? Can we dream and learn to forgive like we ourselves have already been given? Can we dream out loud? Because I believe that we shall overcome. Now, I got a joke now. Now, it's kind of personal, but I've shared my backstory now, and we can talk a little bit. I was thinking about whether or not, Stan, I should share this joke. But when I say this joke, I want you to think about yourself. I want you to sanctify or revolutionize your imagination and see yourself in it. Because it's important that we embody it before we leave this place. The daddy I was talking about just now was from Hardeeville, South Carolina. You have to go through Hardeeville before you know you've been in Hardeeville. You got a city like that? In Hardeeville, the mosquitoes are about this big, and they have their own license plates as they drive by. But my dad was one of 3 boys in his family, but the youngest escaped Hardeeville. He escaped, and he went to the Sorbonne in France. And every year around Christmas, Miss Marsha, he went to the Sorbonne, and they would compete with Christmas presents. Who got mama the best gift? And so one day, his younger brother, the one that escaped Hardeeville, Doc, he sent my great-grandma 2 birds that spoke 3 languages. That's right. From the Sorbonne, he sent my great-grandma 2 birds that spoke 3 languages. Now, if you're wondering about this joke, you're the bird. Let me continue. 2 birds spoke 3 languages. And one day, my daddy's youngest brother called. He said, "Mama, did you get my birds?" Silence, just like this. He said, Ma, did you get my birds? She said, oh yeah, honey, they were good. He said, Ma, those birds spoke 3 languages. Ma, I paid $1,500 a piece for those birds. Ma, did you get my birds? She said, oh yeah, honey, they were good. They were good. She said, Ma, did you eat my birds? She said, sure enough, they should have said something. Washington Diversity Council, we need to say something. When you see an injustice, we need to say something. When you see a kid who's lounging, don't beat him up for being poor. Step in and say something. When you see someone who's acting in ways that are homophobic, we need to intervene and say something. We need to say something while asking real questions. Say something by wrestling with radical integrity, and say something to the extent that we know, like Dr. King, that despite the obstacles deep in our hearts, we do believe that because we say something, we will overcome someday.
Reverend Matthews, thank you for asking us to search our souls. And that powerful question, that one powerful question, is it right? It's scary, but is it right? And that's what we have to defend. I think that, well, yesterday was Reverend King's 94th birthday, and I think if he were here today, he would be very happy to see this great mosaic of humanity that we have here this morning. Thank you all so much for being here. And every year, I've been hanging around a little bit, Linda, a few other times, and every year, this is sold out. So your council is doing a wonderful job, an immaculate job of bringing people together, and they're trying to tell me something. What am I missing? Oh, questions. Okay, I'm sorry. I got excited. Thanks for stopping me. Never give a former anchor a microphone. It's like giving a black preacher a microphone, isn't it, Reverend?
Wait a minute.
Same thing, isn't it?
There's no commercial breaks at McKinley.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm sorry. Questions, please.
If there are any questions that don't involve my wife's tax returns, I would be glad to take any questions that don't involve those. She's not allowing me to run for office, so we got some questions. Any questions? But this is part of. I want to thank someone for giving me a wonderful hug and 2 cigars. I'm not telling who it is. I'm just going to look at him and say, your wife is getting you in trouble. Any questions? I really wish you saw how beautiful you are. I really wish you could look around the room and appreciate that how difficult it is to live in these ideals in these days and times. If you could see how beautiful you are, it would remind you to redouble your efforts and have a hope whereby you can live out loud. We should not take settings like this for granted. Let me say it again. We should not take settings like these for granted. We should really push ourselves over the course of the next 365 days to see how we can be a part of these kind of conversations, even if it sometimes makes us uncomfortable, because you are just so beautiful. I've been crying a lot lately. I don't know. I'm 50 now, so I guess I'm crying a lot. But I think part of the tears that I have, and I'm still talking until someone's going to ask a question. She's got a question. But part of the tears, I think, and this is important, is that I think I've finally lived long enough to push past the preoccupation of accomplishments. I want to say this again. To really push past your preoccupation towards stuff and accomplishments and just be still and just be completely enamored with the beauty that sits before you. And so as I'm standing here now, I'm just in tears, looking at the beauty that's before us. Speaking of beauty, there's Renita Haas-Saunders with the question.
Thank you, Pastor. I thank you for your remarks. And as I am thinking about what you said and the challenge you have given to each and every one of us to just do something, to do a little more. You mentioned poverty. You mentioned what was happening in Dayton Public Schools. You mentioned the beauty of the mosaic of those individuals here. If Dr. King was alive today and he would see us gathered in this room and heard your remarks, he would say perhaps, what is the number one priority in a world that is challenged with all of the problems that you mentioned? Is there a number one priority that you think is most important today?
So full disclosure, Renita's my mentor. I did not pay her to ask that question. I think that if you look at any of Dr. King's books, particularly the ones toward the ends of his life, there were always three things that he was trying to reconcile. One is the issue of race, understanding that it's a social construct and that on the realness of it all, as the kids in the streets say, you and I are all the same. We push past the social construct of race. The second thing that gripped him was this overlying sense of poverty. I really would love all of you in the next 30 days to drive through East or West Dayton. And if you just drive through East or West Dayton, you would not be able to tell if you're in Bosnia or Haiti, in spaces right outside where you are. And the third one is our preoccupation with militarism, and that's a longer conversation. But I think right now, the thing that's most important that King would begin to think about and talk about and ask each of us is, why are we so complacent? The notion of complacency that sits at each of our doorsteps obviously often acts outside of times of crisis. And King would ask ourselves, why are we so complacent? And how can we be motivated to do things, large or small scale, outside of times of crisis? And so the notion, if you've heard him say, if you are a janitor, sweep like Michelangelo is giving you a broom, right? If you're a teacher, teach like Picasso is on the other end of your students' expectations, right? If you are a fireman, run to the rescue as if you are running towards the Super Bowl, and that it gives you an opportunity to grasp and live out your life with a sense of urgency. And so that's a hard thing, because some of us don't move as fast as we used to. But we would ask ourselves the question each and every day, who am I and how do I move out in this new sense, in this realized space? I'm looking at this young man right here. What grade are you in, young man? I'm a senior in high school. You've been smiling, and I've been smiling at you the whole time. I always know I'm in my bag when young people are smiling. What are you thinking about right now?
Well, I really enjoy everything you said. I mean, I work a lot with Centerville School Board, and so making sure that all of our students are represented, all of those who have different socioeconomic backgrounds is really important. And so everything you said really hit home for me, and I really enjoyed it.
Son, tell me your name. We are now this is the committee to draft Jacob for Congress right now. Jacob, we celebrate you. Love you, I appreciate you. Okay, Marsha, I think we're in good shape.
You have 10 minutes.
Look, somebody has to work today. Oh, there's a question right there in the back.
Hi. So the first thing I did when I heard what church you're with is I looked it up on the internet and I wanted to know where you were located. And then I saw something about the Dayton Equity Center, which sounds like it's a branch of your church. Can you talk a little bit about?
Now this is a wonderful, my wife is laughing like, did you pay her to ask you that? I did not pay. So the Dayton Equity Center is a market-based approach to deal with the issues that confront us. We are part of the United Methodist Church, which has 1,100 churches in Western Ohio that are broken into 8 different geographics across the state. We are in the district of the Miami Valley District. The Miami Valley District seeded us money and gave us an opportunity to start a separate 501c3. And that 501c3 kick-started its way when we decided to do something about the pandemic. And so in the pandemic, we decided, working with wonderful partners like persons that are in this room, we tested more than 2,500 persons for the COVID virus from March of 2020 to December of 2020. And then we took it to the next step and partnered with our sister church here in Grace United Methodist Church and vaccinated more than 15,000 people. Now, in response to that, because we're a global church, money started coming from all over this place. And we ask ourselves some questions. What are the 3 biggest things that face us? And we have business solutions to work towards those endeavors. The first one is working with the Roosevelt Elementary School, where we work with 50 kids weekly, and we provide for 400 kids monthly. The second thing is a power program where we're the only church in America that certifies people for forklift instruction that has become so powerful and popular that this year it's moved now that we're certifying people for cybersecurity. And then the last thing that we do is we work with the resettlement community and 10 pastors in the city of Dayton who we help build capacity to make sure our sisters in the continent of Africa also have the bandwidth to begin to answer their own pressing questions. And doing all of that, we sit in the middle of the 45402 area code. And in that area code, we've discovered that area code represents, for a family of 4, the average median income is $21,000. And so we want to stand up working solutions that provide us an opportunity to make sure that opportunities are available for all. And so last year, we served more than 3,000 persons because we worked with a variety of constituencies. We'd love to work with Victoria's Secret and Premier Health, but we've worked with a variety of constituencies to close the gap on racial injustice and economic inequality. But my dream is, and I shouldn't say this, I'm not going to say it. Renita told me to leave it alone. So, but in those three things, we provide opportunities to work with people just like you. So please, if you're Presbyterian or Jewish or Muslim or Sikh, go to www.daytonequity.org. Lock it in your phones right now, www.daytonequity.org. Not trying to baptize you, just want to help me help some kids. Thank you very much for that. Did I answer your question? All right.
So in your answer to Ronita's question, you talked about a behavior or maybe a mindset of complacency, right? So if the question was rephrased, so if you had one thing and one thing only we could do in America today, what would that be?
I would stand on Dr. King's shoulders in his last book where he argued that we need to have permanent employment and permanent income, that everyone needs a job. If you have a job, comes with it a sense of dignity and self-worth. So that's why I was saying last year at McKinley United Methodist Church, the Dayton Equity Center provided more than 150 jobs. And you would not imagine the stories of people, particularly from the resettlement community and the second chance community, that it has changed their lives. To the extent that our partners at Procter & Gamble have stories of people sleeping outside of the plant to make sure they get to work on time because transportation is an issue. So if you were to ask me what the number one thing is to close the economic gap and to make sure everybody has a fair day's work. Yep. Harvey Smith, I thank you. He's one of my heroes and giants from United Theological Seminary. This man has done more for urban ministry in the city of Dayton than you could ever imagine. We salute you. Thank you, Harvey Smith.
Thank you, Reverend Matthews. We truly appreciate all of your messages. Alyssa Lockhart is a student at Incarnation School, and she is joining us now at the podium. Alyssa.
I have not always valued people who are different.
I pledge to honor the dignity and inherent worth of every human being. It's on the back.
I have not always practiced compassion for people.
I pledge to oppose injustice, not people.
I have sometimes been more concerned about my rights than the rights of others.
I pledge to dedicate myself to use my talents to empower others as I empower myself.
I have not always stood up against injustice or denounced violence.
I pledge to consciously practice peace on a daily basis.
I have sometimes been reluctant to embrace differences and appreciate the value of every human being.
I pledge to treat each person I meet with courtesy, respect, and fairness.
Will Marcia Barnhart please stand? Marcia has been our mistress of ceremony for 10 years, and we really appreciate her. At this time, will Rabbi Karen come up and give the benediction?
Oh God, we pray this morning that our hearts and our minds have been opened, and we have allowed ourselves to be wholly inspired by the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we pray to you, O source of goodness, we remember our call to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with you. God, grant us the insight to recognize that all of humanity is created equally in your image. May we honor you as we act as beacons of light and work to strengthen our communities by celebrating and enriching one another with our diversity. Help us to feel the reassurance of your presence as we embrace our radical integrity. We march forward in pursuit of civil rights and justice for all humankind. May it be your will.